All right. Well, I didn't scare you off last week, so that's a plus. Susie told me I didn't have to apologize for it, but last week was hard. It was a hard message. Today's going to be a good one, okay? So it's not going to be as difficult. I'm not as nervous. I'm feeling a little bit excited. So thank you for coming back and not being scared to come back. My name is Katie. If we haven't met yet, I am the associate pastor here. I am not the head honcho. I'm only a mini head honcho, okay? Scotty loves his wife or something, and so they always have these dates that they go on. And so if you're wondering where Scotty is, he and his wife are just spending some time together, which I think is super cute. So if you have questions about our church, I would love to help you today, as well as Bill in the back. We can help you out. But today we're continuing on in this series about grace. Have you guys enjoyed talking about grace so far? Okay, great, good. It's only going to get better because grace can only get better. That's a good news today. Our bottom line for this series has been we need God's grace, and that's okay. For most of my life, I've kind of been the person that has felt like I have to earn God's grace. And so this series has really just changed my life because I realized that I can just sit and allow God's grace to wash over me. And it's so good. You don't have to earn any part of it. That's not my message today, but I'm just letting you know. You don't have to earn any part of it, all right? So I wanted to start this morning by telling you a little bit about me and my testimony and who God has been in my life. If you don't know me at all, I am very obnoxious about softball. It's my life. I am an Alabama fan. Don't leave yet, okay? Any softball I support, but Alabama Roll Tide, okay? But I had this dream when I was a child, and if you've been to our church before, I've showed you some cute pictures of me. I'm not going to do that today and embarrass myself. But as a child, I remember telling my parents, I'm going to be Pudge Rodriguez. And if you don't know who Pudge is, you need to look up some Rangers history because he's the best, and I don't care what you say, okay? But he was a catcher, and in my life, that was who I was going to be. And then I realized I am a woman, and my name is Katie, not Pudge, so I can't be Pudge Rodriguez. And there's this weird rule in baseball that women cannot participate, and that's annoying, and someday somebody's going to change that, and I'm going to get excited for it. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to be a professional softball player. But here's the dumb deal, okay? When I was younger, they did not have professional softball league. So you could play in college, and then you had to go get a regular job. And I was like, I don't want to do that. It's either all softball or nothing. And so then when all my dreams were suddenly crushed, because I had 2 ribs removed, and that's a long story, and then I broke my foot, and that's also a long story, I realized that maybe playing softball for the rest of my life would not work because I was fragile. And so I thought, okay, the only thing I was ever good at besides softball was history. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be a history teacher, which I currently am. That dream came true. And I'm going to coach softball. My first year of teaching, I did not get the opportunity. The first year of teaching is just awful. If you know a teacher and it's their first year, you need to pray for them because most of them do not come back, okay? So just pray for the teachers in your lives because it's rough. And so I did not do the whole coaching thing my first year because I was drowning. And then I moved to Brady, and I got the 8th grade middle school position, and I really wasn't looking to coach. And it kind of just fell into my lap. God's cool that way and makes opportunities happen. And I was like, finally. And so I started assistant coaching. And the cool thing was the head coach that I was helping, she was my head coach in high school. And so it was kind of full circle moment. I was still just as obnoxious as I was in high school, so she probably hated that. But we had a great time together, and after 3 years of doing that life together, she sat me down and she said, Katie, I'm not coming back next year. I've got a new job, but I'm recommending you to be the head coach. And y'all, I was so excited. Okay, first of all, you don't probably want a 25-year-old the head honcho of anything, but they were going to let me, right? And so I was so excited. I was so pumped. I already started making all these plans, like Coach Vaughn, Missy Vaughn, if you don't know her, she's incredible. She's a great coach. But also, I just wanted to do things a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? We don't see eye to eye on every little thing, right? And so I had all these plans. I started making practice routines. It's December, nobody's playing softball, but I was, excited. I was pumped. I was ready to go. And softball season came and went. And then this weird thing happened where she said she was going to recommend me as the head coach. And then they posted the job on the website, head coach of softball. And like, I had the best of friends, right? All of my coworkers were like, it's a formality. They have to do it. They have to give other people a chance, Katie. And I was like, no, they do not. It's about me. And so I was getting a little nervous, but I was like, no. I know God would not do this to me, right? You ever have those moments where like, God would not ever do this to me. We talked about that last week. And so I was patient, and I actually ran into the athletic director, and I said, hey, like, I saw that you guys posted the softball position online, and I just like want to make sure that you know and I know, like, this is what I want to do. Like, you don't have to post nothing. And he was like, really, you're interested? And I was like, yeah, actually, I really am. And he was like, okay, cool. Like, when we start to interview people, we'll let you know. Oh, okay. So I wasn't going to be a shoo-in, but I still wasn't that nervous. Like, I'm good at what I do. I enjoy the sport. I've been doing this for 3 years. I played for 15 years. Like, I just couldn't play in college because my body just finally gave out on me. I can do this, right? And so I wasn't nervous. I didn't feel like I needed to apply. He now knew my expectations. I knew his expectations. And a few weeks went by, and I never got an email about an interview. And so then I was nervous. And I emailed him and I said, hey, we had this conversation a while ago. Like, I'm still interested in being interviewed. I still didn't hear anything back. And so I'm like, this is either a sign or it's something I'm going to ignore. And I just ignored it because I'm annoying. And so then I saw him again and I said, hey, we had this conversation. I need an interview. When do you want to meet? Like, it wasn't a question of anymore if I want to interview or not. I was putting the ball in his hand saying, I am ready. And then he started this long conversation about what he expected in this interview. And I needed to bring a binder and I had to have all these plans. And I was like, yeah, like, I've got that. I'm ready. Let's do an interview right now. And so I finally got the interview. And listen, y'all, I killed it. I know I killed it because I prepared and I was excited, and I've been here for 3 years, and so I knew what we needed to work on, and I had all these practice plans. And they called me an hour later and said I did not get it, that I did not have enough experience. If you are a boss of some sort of corporation, please do not tell millennials who are trying to get the most experience ever that we do not have enough experience, okay? Tell me anything else, but don't tell me that. So I remained an assistant coach for a year and I quit because I just couldn't do it anymore. Because that was my one shot. And I missed it. And see, here's what I have thought about God. I have thought, and I think God is only capable of giving me one shot, one opportunity, and if I miss it, there's not another one. And that was my one shot. That was my dream. Like, I know it seems kind of dumb that that teaching and coaching a sport would be a dream, but it was mine. And then it just like got flushed down the toilet. And so today, what I want to do is I want to prove this statement wrong. God is not a God of one-shot opportunities. There's this awesome musical called Hamilton. Okay, not a whole lot of people are excited about that today, so you have homework officially right now. Okay, you're gonna go home, you're gonna go to Disney Plus, and you're gonna watch Hamilton. It's about Alexander Hamilton. He was kind of a forgotten founding father, and then they made this beautiful musical about him. And one of the songs, I love it because it's 90% rap music, so the older generation, you may not love it, but it's a great story about history, and 90% of it is untrue, but it's still great. It's just a great story. And one of the songs that Alexander raps/sings, he says, I am not going to throw away my shot. And that's how I felt. And so today I want to show you someone that I think you would recognize. Okay, I've been in the Old Testament lately. I had this notion that God was evil and mean in the Old Testament. And then I started reading it for myself. And like, he's actually the same God that he is in the New Testament. People still just be dumb, you know what I'm saying? So today I want to introduce you to one of my favorite characters of the Old Testament. His name is Moses. He's kind of a big deal. You know that whole splitting the Red Sea thing? That was him. And God was involved in that as well, okay? But when Moses and God have their first interaction, Moses, he doesn't really wanna. And I just really identified with that because there have been many times in my life where God and I have had an interaction and I just don't really want to do what he says. I don't know if any of you would like to admit that this morning, but I will just go ahead and admit it, that I'm very hard-headed and I want to do what I want to do. And God's like, really? Okay. And so today we're going to meet Moses. And Moses, this is in Exodus. Moses is out in the field working. And he sees this incredible thing happen. A bush catches on fire, but like it doesn't ever burn. It was the weirdest thing. Like you put yourself in his shoes out in the field working and you see this bush, it's literally on fire, but nothing is burning. So he's like, I'm gonna go check this out. And this is where he has an encounter with God, all right? And that's where we're gonna pick up in our story today. And so this is God speaking to Moses. He tells Moses, so now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. I need you to go. I need you to do that. Okay, and so today, I'm not going to show you a whole lot of God's responses to Moses because I want to make a point about Moses here. So what you're going to see is a lot of Moses and not a whole lot of God, and that's on purpose, okay? So we're going to skip around just a tiny bit, all right? I'm not changing anything about the Bible. I'm just kind of leaving out a little bit of pieces so you can see, okay? So here's Moses' first response to this. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Who am I to do this? Of course, God has a response to him. And look at what Moses says again. Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? So he's basically saying, what if they don't believe me? What if I go and do all this, God, and they don't believe me? And God answers him and Moses responds, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? And God, of course, responds, and Moses says back, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. So basically, he's trying to make up every excuse in the world to not do what God has called him to do. And look at the Lord's response. I chose this particular response because I feel like God has also said the same thing to me a couple of times. The Lord said to Moses, who gave human beings their mouth? Ah, yikes. Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight and makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you, and I will teach you what to say. So God's literally like, I see you. I understand that you've got these concerns, but like, bro, I made you. If you're concerned about God's direction in your life this morning, I just want you to know, like, God sees you, he made you, and he's going to help you do whatever he's asked you to do. He's not going to leave you out in the wilderness, I promise, although it may seem that way. So God has this great response to Moses, and I'm sure like Moses was like, I'm ready, God, except that's not what happened. Moses said, pardon your servant, Lord, can you please send somebody else? Yes, I've been there. I've asked the same question. When God told me that my job was going to be working with 8th graders my whole life, working with teenagers, I was like, can you please just send somebody else? Please, God. They scare me so much. Can you please just send somebody else? And so the Lord responds to him and says, what about your brother Aaron? And what I want to tell you about this story is that Moses had one shot. And it seems like he blew it because God finally gives in and says, okay, go get your brother Aaron. Go get your brother Aaron, he'll do it. Moses had one shot, right? I want to ask you something this morning. Have you ever tried to talk God out of his own plans for you? I'll be honest with you. Never in my life did I thought I would be a female pastor. Never in my life did I want to be one because I know how men feel about it. I'll just be honest. Like, there's no part of me that woke up one morning and I was like, I could not wait to make everyone in the world angry today by getting up on the stage and telling people about Jesus. Like, I had the very same experience as Moses. I was like, can you just like choose somebody else? I've been there. I've tried to talk God out of his own plans. And what I want you to know this morning and what we're going to get to, I don't want to leave you hanging here. God gives more than one shot. Okay, and we're going to see that in a second, but I'm pausing here for a moment because we're going to switch things. But I just want you to know before I switch stories on you, you have more than one shot. Okay, your story isn't over just because you ask God, can you send somebody else right now? His opportunities are endless, and that's where grace walks in the door. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you another story in the New Testament, equally as good. Equally as just dramatic, okay? We've got these two guys named Paul and Barnabas. We talked a lot about Paul last week, but Paul and Barnabas were kind of like on a mission trip together. I don't know of a better way to describe it. And they had this other guy with them named Mark, also referred to as John Mark, also just referred to as John. I don't know. I don't get it. But he was there. And at one point, Paul and Barnabas go one way, and Mark decides not to. All right, so I want to show you what happens after that, okay? So here we go. This is in Acts. Sometime later, Paul said to Barnabas, let's go back. So they've been on all these mission trips. They've been to all these churches. And Paul says, let's go back and visit the believers in all the towns where we preach the word of the Lord and see how they're doing. Literally, he just wants to make sure they're okay, right? They're just hearing the news of Jesus. Jesus wasn't 100% popular at this time. And so he just wants to make sure, you doing okay? You all right? You need our help? And so look at what Barnabas has. Barnabas has this idea. He's like, I want to take John, also called Mark, and with us. But Paul did not think it was wise because he had deserted them. John Mark decided that he was not about to be a part of this. And listen, we don't know why. Okay, I searched and searched for the answer of why John Mark went the other direction. Okay, I don't know, maybe God told him to and Paul didn't know. Maybe John Mark is a little bit rebellious and was just like, I don't want to go with you anymore, you're getting on my nerves. Maybe he had something else I don't know, okay? But what Paul says is that he deserted them and had not continued with them in their work, so he does not get to come back because you only get one shot and John Mark missed it. I told you today that I wanted to prove this wrong. So what I want you to know today is that even in our failure, God still shows up. One of our core values here at Brownwood Community Church is to allow failure. And I have failed many times in my life. I'm only 30 and I've probably failed 7 million times. And God has still shown up. It's not just a one shot and you're done. You don't have to be Alexander Hamilton. If you know anything about Alexander Hamilton's story, he gets shot in a duel and dies because he believes so much in this one shot and he didn't get it. He didn't get it. So I'm gonna switch one more time. This is a lot of scripture today, okay? But I just want to prove to you that God's not done with you. In James, there's this really interesting part of James where, okay, let me just show you. This is what James wrote. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. That's a little bit dramatic, but we're going to keep going. You covet and you cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. So I gathered two things from this. James seems kind of mad a little bit. He seems frustrated of what's going on, but literally right after this, look what he wrote down. But he gives more grace. But even in the midst of all of this stuff that is going down, I want you to know that God gives even more grace. It is not a one shot and done, because here's what I know. Sometimes God has to work a little bit longer with some of us. Some of us need a little bit more time. It took a long time for me to understand God, probably 25 years. I met God at 19, and I didn't get it for 6 years. At 25, I kind of got it as much as a 25-year-old can. At 30, I'm still not getting it, but there's even more grace. There's even more grace. It doesn't run out. I used to be one of those people that thought it runs out. But if you go back and you read the story of Moses, you know that Moses, yes, is the one that splits the Red Sea. Moses is the one that asked God for manna and it just appears. What the heck? Like, that should not happen. If Moses only had one shot, his brother Aaron should have always been in charge. And that's just not how his story went. And what about John Mark? Okay, John Mark, Paul is like, I don't want him anywhere near me. And then in 2 Timothy, Paul's in prison and he's writing Timothy and he's like, hey, I need all these people to come see me. I need some encouragement. I need some friends. And look what he says. He says, get Mark and bring him with you. Get Mark and go get him, for he is very useful to me in ministry. So if Mark only had one shot, why would Paul write this? Mark has his own gospel in the Bible. If he only had one shot, he wouldn't have had that. And I just want you to know that God is a God of trying again. God is not going to leave you because you missed your one shot. When we miss the shot, God always has the rebound. He always does. He always does. That's good news today. Because I kid you not, I was very terrible at basketball. I was a great bench sitter, a great encourager. But every time I would try to shoot the ball, it was just an air ball. Embarrassing. But God always got my rebound. In life, God always has your rebound. And if you feel this morning like God has benched you in the game of life, don't worry. He's drawing up your perfect play right now. It's not just one shot. If it was just one shot, I don't think any of us would be here this morning. You don't just get one opportunity, because God is not the God of one shots. He is the God of continuing to try again. He is the God of grace. And grace today is trying again. God is not a God of strikeouts. And I can tell you, I struck out a lot of times because I like to do this one thing where like I would swing and think it was going to be a home run and the ball was in the catcher's mitt. It was a problem I had, but you know what? I always got another chance. And you do too. God is the God of trying again. So this morning I started off a story and telling you how sad I was that I didn't get a head coaching position and I quit. They told me I needed more experience, so I did what any person that gets told that. I got really mad and really bitter. And then I decided to get better. So I went and got a master's degree in coaching and sports administration. I have not used it once, but I got it. I went to a softball coaching clinic to try and be the best softball coach I could ever be. And then I decided I can't do it anymore, and I quit. I asked to get out of my contract. And luckily they granted it to me, and I just was a teacher, and I've just been a teacher since that time, since 2019. And it's heartbreaking because used to, all I could think about was coaching softball. Like, I just have a passion for it. I have a passion for teenagers. And like, when two passions meet, like, it seems like a God opportunity, right? And so like, I was bitter and I was angry. And what's really been cool is now it's 2024. It's been about 5 years since that's happened. And just recently, I've started dreaming about being a coach again. God has put it in my dreams, like literally at night. I dream about yelling at my kids. Don't swing at that. And that's grace. God is the God of trying again. So I don't know where you are this morning. I don't know all of your stories, but if your story is anything like mine, like that destroyed me. Like every part of my identity was wrapped up in coaching softball. It's what I wanted to do so badly. And like, I just had to allow God to rebuild me. You know, like earlier I said, sometimes God takes a little bit longer with some of us. That's been me. It's taken 5 years to heal. And now it's slowly in my dream. Does that mean I'm ever going to coach softball again? I don't know. I don't know what the Lord's got planned, but like, I'm just buckling my seatbelt and getting in the car because I know God's the God of trying again. And I may fail a million times, but God's the God of trying again. He's the God of even more grace. And we need it, guys. We need it. He is the God of even more grace, and we need it. So I want to encourage you this morning, if you're at a place where there's a wall right in front of you, if you're at a place where you think, I can't and I won't and I didn't get it and I won't ever, I would say let the God of try again in your life. Maybe you've given up on Christianity. Maybe you've given up on church. Listen, I've been there too. I was so burned by the church, you could not get me in a church. And here we are. Because he's the God of trying again. He's the God of trying again. He is the God of even more grace. Let me pray for you. God, man, life is hard, especially when we get rejected and we don't want to try again. And Lord, we are so thankful that in our lives, when we come up to a wall, when we have failed miserably, that you're always there to catch the rebound. You're always there to catch our fall, that you're always there to give us another opportunity, because Moses wouldn't be Moses without another opportunity. Mark wouldn't be Mark without another opportunity. We would not be who we are without another opportunity. And God, it's so good to know that your opportunities never run out. And Lord, I pray if there's somebody in this room that thinks that they've run out of grace, that they find you this morning, Lord. That they find your waterfall of grace, because you don't run out. It's who you are. You're the God of trying again. You're the God of even more grace. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Next week will be our last week of this grace series. Scotty will be back. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you then. Don't forget, if you want to paint some bowls, sign up with us on the QR code. We'll see you Wednesday or Sunday. Be blessed.